Amsterdam. A city of canals, bicycles, tulips, and one of the most famous neighborhoods on the planet. A place where curiosity, liberation, tourism, controversy, and centuries of history collide under glowing red lights. Today, we're diving deep into the origins, evolution, myths, realities, laws, livelihoods, and future of Amsterdam's Red Light District, known locally as De Wallen. This isn't just a story about sex work, it's the story of a city wrestling with identity, freedom, morality, and the meaning of open-mindedness itself. So, join me as we walk through the narrow alleys, over cobblestone bridges, and across centuries. To understand De Wallen, we have to go back nearly 900 years. Sometime around the 12th century, Amsterdam was little more than a fishing village built around a dam on the Amstel River. Merchants, sailors, and traders from all over Europe pulled into the young harbour, unloading goods and spending long stretches of time far from home. And as with almost every port in medieval Europe where sailors went, sex work followed. It was an informal presence at first, women offering services in taverns, inns, and private homes. And despite today's perception that medieval society was prudish and puritanical, sex work was widely tolerated, even taxed, in many cities across Europe. By the 14th century, the area around what is now the Oude Kerk, the Old Church, became an unofficial center of activity. The church, ironically, played a larger role than one might expect. Here's a paradox that historians still love to point out. While the church preached chastity, it also preferred prostitution to adultery or rape, considering it a lesser evil. As a result, many churches in medieval Europe existed just steps away from brothels. Amsterdam was no exception. Records from the 1400s mention bordeerhouwer, brothel keepers, in the area near the Oudezieds Voorburgwal Canal. The neighborhood quickly became known for taverns, gambling, drinking, and sex. It wasn't a red light district yet, those came centuries later, but the seeds had been planted. Between the 16th and 18th centuries, Amsterdam transformed into the global center of trade. The Dutch Golden Age brought unprecedented wealth. Ships from across the world connected the Netherlands to the Spice Islands, the Americas, and Africa. Where wealth flowed, vice followed. With tens of thousands of sailors and merchants pouring through the harbor every year, sex work became deeply embedded in local life. Still, it remained in a gray zone, tolerated but not officially legal. During this era, something else crucial began: the Dutch philosophy of gedegen, tolerance. This idea didn't mean the Dutch approved of everything happening around them. Rather, it meant that if an activity couldn't realistically be stopped, the government might choose to regulate or tolerate it in a controlled manner. This approach would later shape cannabis laws, LGBTQ+ rights, and of course, prostitution. The 19th century brought industrialization, poverty, and massive urban growth. Amsterdam struggled with disease, overcrowding, and poor living conditions. Brothels became associated with crime and exploitation, and in 1897, the government officially banned brothel operations. But the ban did not end prostitution, it simply pushed it into more informal spaces. Rooms, windows, and private houses, exactly the opposite of what the government hoped for. The red lights themselves, the iconic crimson glow still seen today, became common in the late 19th century. The color served a practical purpose. Red light does not penetrate far, offering a form of privacy while still signaling availability. In maritime towns, red lanterns had long been associated with brothels, and the tradition stuck. By the early 20th century, despite legal contradictions, the Red Light District as we know it was clearly taking shape. But World War II would change Amsterdam forever. During the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands, Amsterdam suffered immensely. Jewish communities were decimated. Food shortages ravaged the population, and in the Red Light District, Repression was intense. Interestingly, Nazi authorities did not close brothels, they controlled them. Sex workers were forced to undergo medical checks, and clients were often soldiers or collaborators. Many women were pushed into work due to poverty. The war left scars on the district, physical, emotional, and cultural. But after liberation, Amsterdam entered a new era. After the war, Amsterdam reinvented itself. The 1960s brought global counterculture, feminist movements, and a new wave of liberalism. The city became a hub of artistic freedom, LGBTQ+ community growth, and social activism. Sex workers began organizing, advocating for labor rights, safety, and respect. Meanwhile, tourists, fascinated by Amsterdam's openness, began arriving in massive numbers. By the 1970s, window prostitution was normalized, tolerated, and increasingly regulated. The Red Light District became a tourist attraction, unlike anything else in Europe. At the same time, drug policies shifted. Hard drugs caused social problems. But cannabis? The government took a different approach. Coffee shops, licensed businesses selling small quantities of cannabis, were legalized under strict rules in 1976. This added another dimension to Wallen's identity as a place of freedom. For decades, prostitution remained tolerated but not officially legal. That changed in the year 2000, when the Netherlands became one of the first countries in the world to fully legalize brothels. The goal? Reduce exploitation, increase worker safety, and bring the industry out of the shadows. Window prostitution became formalized. Sex workers could legally rent windows, pay taxes, hire bodyguards, and report crimes without fear of arrest. Strict licensing rules applied to brothel owners, ensuring safe working conditions. But legalization also opened the door to new problems. Human trafficking organizations, seeing an opportunity, attempted to move into Amsterdam. Many sex workers were empowered and independent, but others were manipulated or coerced. The government's structured system helped in many cases, but the issue remains complex. In the 2000s and 2010s, Amsterdam became one of the most visited cities in Europe. Low-cost airlines, backpacker culture, and Instagram all contributed to unprecedented crowds. By the mid-2010s, Wallen became overwhelmed. Locals complained of noise, drunkenness, and disrespectful behavior. Tourists photographing sex workers without consent, blocking doorways, shouting in the narrow streets. In 2019, the city announced bold reforms, closing many brothel windows, moving tourism away from Wallen, increasing policing of illegal operators, regulating guided tours, considering relocating part of the sex industry outside the city center. These proposals remain controversial. Sex workers argue that closing windows reduces their safety and income. Local residents support measures to reduce nuisance. The debate continues. Today, Wallen exists at a crossroads. The district is still functioning, still iconic, still drawing millions of visitors every year. But it is also under intense scrutiny, politically and culturally. Window prostitution remains legal, though the number of windows has shrunk. Workers are independent contractors who rent space from licensed operators. They set their own hours, prices. The district is increasingly expensive. New bars, boutique hotels and restaurants have driven up rent, pushing out long-time residents and small shops. Some sex workers fear that moral arguments against prostitution mask economic motives for redevelopment. The city has proposed building an erotic center outside the historic core. Supporters say it will reduce nuisance, and workers will have more modern facilities. As we walk through Wallen today, we see contradictions everywhere. Iconic beauty and chaotic nightlife, peaceful canals and raucous crowds, centuries-old churches and neon-lit windows, a neighborhood preserved by history yet shaped by modern economics. Every few steps tells a story, from the Oude Kerk, the city's oldest building, to the narrow alleys where glass windows reflect both empowerment and vulnerability. This place forces us to confront uncomfortable realities and rethink what freedom truly means. Amsterdam's Red Light District isn't just about sex work. It's about centuries of survival, adaptation, and negotiation. It's about a city that chose tolerance over prohibition, practicality over dogma. It forces us to confront the complexity of freedom, the idea that open societies must grapple with messy, imperfect realities. Whether you see de Wallen as a symbol of liberation, exploitation, tourism, or history, one thing is certain: it tells a story no other place on Earth can tell.